So you want your character to grow. You want your character to evolve, to get sharper, stronger, stranger, to level up and become the kind of person stories are told about. But here's the question no one ever taught you to ask. Who decides what your growth looks like? Because in most RPGs, especially D&D, that answer isn't you, it's the book. And before you ever sit down to play, your character's arc has already been paved. The class you chose, that was your cage, the feat tree, your script, the XP chart, that's the pace you're expected to hit if you want to keep up with normal progression. Want to be a rogue who leads armies? Well, tough. That's not on your track. Want to start as a fighter but become a master manipulator by level 8? Well, sorry, they just don't have a subclass for that. In D&D and every system like it, growth isn't a reflection of play, it's a reward for compliance. You follow the rules, you get stronger, you earn your next power by ticking the right boxes, and if you play outside the lines, well, too bad. You don't get to level up as the character you become. You level up as the character you were expected to be. And maybe you've never said it out loud, but I know you've probably felt it. That moment where your actual story, the thing that happened at the table, doesn't match the version of your character the game keeps upgrading. You talked your way past 5 fights in a row, but you still level up like a butcher. You roleplayed a personal breakthrough, but the game just hands you uncanny dodge. You climbed the tower alone, took a risk and saved the mission, and the book says, okay, that's at 300 XP, next. This is the lie baked into every XP system D&D has ever shipped. That growth is something you earn by doing what the book wants, not what the story demands. And over time, that warps how people play. This is the part they don't tell you. When you teach players that XP only comes from certain actions, fights, quests, GM-approved milestones, you don't reward creativity, you punish it. You reward the safe route, the predictable, efficient route, the route that gives the GM what they want. Because everyone knows the GM controls the points, right? And if the GM controls the points, they control the growth. And that's not great game design, that's behavioral conditioning. It trains players to think less like heroes and more like employees. Let me paint you a scene. You're the GM. You've just finished a wild, unpredictable session. One player took a massive, game-changing risk. It didn't solve the quest, but it mattered. It was real. Now every eye turns to you and someone asks, well, do we level up? And in that moment, you're not a game master, you're a manager, and worse, the power's poisoned. Because if you say yes, the group learns this is how we should play. If you say no, they think, guess that wasn't the right kind of fun for this GM. It doesn't matter what you wanted to reward. The system trained them to read your approval like a pay stub. And now you're responsible, not just for running the game, but for deciding who gets to grow and in what way. That's not authority, that's a trap, because if the game only rewards what the GM wants, you don't really have a game, you just have servitude. Let's pull back a second. Why does XP even exist? Where did it come from? It wasn't designed for character arcs, that's for sure. It wasn't made to help you tell better stories. XP was invented to simulate campaign logistics in early war games, a leftover vestigial organ. It was bookkeeping, a way to track when your mercenary unit got tougher. It got bolted onto D&D so that TSR could publish modules with clear rewards and progressive systems and advancement hooks that encourage people to buy more content. You want faster levels? Buy the next module, run more fights, stack more loot. It wasn't a storytelling tool, it was a retention strategy. And we're still using it. So here we are, 50 years later, still killing goblins to get better at talking? Still pretending that a paladin who spent the entire dungeon sneaking, lying, and casting rituals just became a better sword fighter? Still acting like XP is how people grow, even though it does nothing to measure change. Nothing to reflect consequence, nothing to track who we actually became in that dungeon. And maybe the most damning thing, it doesn't even work. How many campaigns have you played where XP was abandoned halfway through? How many DMs just give milestone levels now? How often do you fudge XP totals just to keep the group roughly balanced? We're all pretending this system works, but the truth? We're fixing it manually every session. We're massaging numbers, averaging totals, awarding bonus XP for good roleplay. If you have to constantly patch a system to make it feel fair, call me crazy, but maybe it's not a good system. It's just familiar. So here's the thesis. XP is dead. Not because players don't want to grow, but because the way we've been told to earn growth through grinding, through GM fiat, through rigid mechanical tracks, it doesn't serve the story. It doesn't serve the table. It serves a model that wants predictability and order and easy power curves, but your character's not a curve. They're a storm, a flame, a question with a body, and no XP chart knows what to do with that. Now, at this point, maybe you're wondering what the alternative is. What if you want character progression without the grind? Growth without GM gatekeeping? A system that notices how you actually play and grows with you? Well, we built that. And I'll do you one better. This system doesn't even need a GM because solo gaming is also awesome. And you should try it when the leveling system runs seamlessly by itself in the background all the time. Because here's what life has taught all of us in everything we've ever tried to get better at. You become what you do, not what you said you'd be, not what subclass you picked at level 3, not what's written in the back of the player's handbook under rogue archetypes. What matters, the only thing that should matter, is what you've done, what you've risked, what you've changed. And that's what the seal system in Enginotica captures. Here's how it works. Every time you take an action, you roll 2 10-sided dice in Enginotica, order and chaos. If those dice match, something special happens. It's called a dyad. And when it hits, when the world notices, you earn a seal. Not a bonus from a list, not a power from a tree, a mark of what you just did. You were climbing a ruined wall in the middle of a thunderstorm, you get climb. You fast talked a blood-soaked mercenary out of executing your party, have charm. You flung a lantern at a pile of cursed bones while screaming in defiance, improvised weapons. It doesn't matter if you planned it. It doesn't matter if it's on build. It just happened, and so now it's real. Because anything your character does should be on build intrinsically and indisputably. And this is important, really important, because it flips the entire loop. In traditional XP systems, you shape your play to match the mechanics. In Enginotica, the mechanics reshape themselves to match your play. No XP, no trees, no optimization checklists. Because you're not earning someone else's character. You're discovering your own. Think about what that unlocks. You're no longer punished for creative risks. You can sneak, lie, improvise, monologue, invent, because those moments count too. Everything you do counts. Every move you make informs your build. You don't have to ask if what you just did is enough for XP. You don't have to wonder if your cool idea was productive. You're not performing for the GM's invisible scale. You're just acting. And if the dice align, the world writes it down. Let me show you what that looks like over time. One player starts as a scrappy survivor. They imagined a thief with a tragic backstory and a rusty knife. But 6 sessions in, their seals don't reflect that backstory. They reflect something more real. Leap, brawling, improvised weapons +3. Disarm traps, intimidate, +4? They're not a rogue, they're a feral tactician, a street brawler turned dungeon scout. Someone who survived by turning every object into a weapon and every silence into leverage. That's not just a backstory, it's a pattern. And here's the kicker, they didn't plan it, they just played. And now when they look at their sheet, it doesn't show them what they thought they were supposed to become. It shows them who they are. That's the power of seals. It's not just a system of progression, it's a mirror. And once you see that mirror, your choices change. Suddenly, you're not trying to use your abilities, you're trying to earn your reflection. You start paying attention to the moments that matter, to the risks that feel honest to your character, to the instincts that define you. You stop asking what would help my build most and start asking, what would I do right now if I didn't care about optimization? And that question, that mindset is where real roleplay lives. So let's zoom out. Why does this matter? Because modern RPG players aren't looking for power fantasies as much anymore. They're looking for character stories. Look at what explodes on YouTube. Look at what Critical Role fans write essays about. Look at what brings people back to the table. It's not just the loot. It's not just the boss fights. It's not just who won. It's the choices their characters made and the consequences they lived through. That's the real shift. What worked in the 1970s doesn't serve what people want now. Early D&D rewarded dungeon efficiency, kill count, gold recovered, mechanical performance. Today's players want arcs, identity. They want a reason to care. And XP, it still thinks you're here to run modules and tally goblins. But seals don't care about goblins. They care about moments. They care about what actually happened. And when that's what drives your progression, something strange happens. The more you try to shape the story, the more the story shapes you. Because the seal system is recursive. Every time it remembers you, it marks you. Every time it marks you, it invites you to lean harder into the shape. Not because the numbers say so, because it feels right. You start trusting your instincts. You start chasing the arc, not the XP bar. And the game stops feeling like a treadmill and starts feeling like a journey. You don't need to convince your players to care about story. They already do. They're hungry for it. What they need, what we all need, is a system that listens, a system that watches, that remembers, that evolves. Not one that doles out rewards like a vending machine, but one that grows with you because of you. That's what seals do. They make your play matter. They kill the grind. They free the GM. And they finally give you a character sheet worth believing in. So let's take it even further. You've started earning seals. At first it's small. What +1 leap or climb or persuade. You don't think much of it. Just a mechanical nudge. A tiny reflection of a cool moment you happen to land. But then it happens again and again. You roll another dyad. You don't even plan it, but when the dice match, the world says, yes, that's you. And slowly your sheet starts to speak back to you. You're not just someone who climbed a tower once, you're the kind of person who climbs towers. You're not just someone who lied to survive, you're the kind of person who bends truth like a reed. Seals stack, and the stack becomes a shape. Here's the trick. The game doesn't define your archetype. You build one out of what you've actually done. It's like a trail of breadcrumbs leading backward through every moment you were brave or clever or scared, but moving anyway. And that trail, it becomes a signature, a style, a shadow, something your friends start noticing. They say, of course you tried to tame that cursed horse. That's such a you move. They start predicting what you'll do. Not because they've memorized your character sheet, but because your decisions have built a pattern. And that pattern means something. It's not just flavor. It's not a quirk. It's identity. This is where traditional RPGs break down. In D&D, you pick a class and follow its path. At level 5, you get Fireball, not because it fits your story, but because it's Tuesday and you're a wizard. It's prescriptive, but seals aren't prescriptive. They're descriptive. You don't become a character by picking a lane. You become a character by choosing over and over again how to act. And the more you act like yourself, the sharper the shape gets. Not flatter, not safer, sharper. More contradictory, more vivid, more true. Seals are a spiral. They widen, they deepen, and they echo. Every time you earn one, the question sharpens. Who am I becoming? Not in some abstract narrative sense, in concrete, mechanical terms. Not as a story beat, as a fact. And look, this matters because it does something to players, something beautiful, something dangerous. It teaches you to pay attention to your own play. You start noticing your tendencies. Are you reckless, protective, always trying to improvise, always aiming for the head? Not just once, not just on brand, but consistently, repeatedly. You start to see yourself in the character, and not in the vanity sense, not a fantasy of who you wish you were, but a sketch of your instincts, your actual rhythms of choice. And the more that sheet reflects those rhythms, the more attached you get to it. Not to the gear, not to the build, to the story of yourself you didn't realize you were writing. That's why these characters are so hard to walk away from. They feel earned. Now let's talk numbers, because this isn't just poetic. This is mechanical. Every seal is real. It applies to every role where it's relevant. No GM permission required, no feat tree to unlock, no long rest. It just works. And the more specific you play, the more specific your seals become. Your best friend has +2 throwing knives. You have +2 throwing chairs. And both of those are equally valid. One came from tactical discipline and the other came from a bar fight that spiraled into legend. The game doesn't care which one's better. It just tracks what happened. And yeah, there's limits. You don't get infinite seals. You've got room for 9. That forces decisions. When the spiral offers you a new seal, you have to ask, do I want to keep this version of myself? Or is it time to let something go? That's character arc. That's not just mechanical. It's growth as inventory management for identity. It's who am I now versus who am I willing to stop being? This is the kind of depth that milestone leveling just can't touch, because XP always works in absolutes. You reach a threshold, ding a level, get a list, it's blunt, it's linear, but growth in Enginotica isn't linear, it's mosaic. Messy, honest, built from play, not planned around it. And that mess, that's where the soul of the character lives. So here's the final truth. You don't need a system that tells you who to be. You need a system that notices who you already are. That's what seals do. They don't tell your story, they record it. One diet at a time. So let's end with the part that matters most. You built a character who reflects your actual play. You've earned seals not from a list, but from your own decisions, and the game has recognized you. But here's the question every seasoned GM is asking right now. If the system is this freeform, how the hell does it not break? Because in most games, the more specific a character becomes, the more their abilities deviate from expected paths, the harder it is to balance anything. Suddenly you're rolling custom skills no one planned for. The rules start fraying, the GM's stuck eyeballing DCs, guessing difficulty, winging everything from scratch. And that's when the game stops feeling like a system and starts feeling like homework. But Enginotica doesn't fall apart. Because underneath all that narrative, all the freedom, all the chaos of player-driven identity, there's a framework. Clean, scalable, elegant. It's called the D19 feasibility system. Here's how it works. Every roll in Enginotica, every single one, uses the same engine. You roll the D19. Order, chaos. 1 white die, 1 black die. Add your bonuses, your helices, your seals, any boosts from gear or magic, and then subtract the difficulty. Done. The result isn't pass-fail though. It's a force outcome ranging from -9 to +9, and with each zone meaning something different. Yes, yes and, no but, no and, clinch. Mapping to a meaningful mechanical result. No tables, no check the rulebook, no extra layer for stealth versus persuasion versus arcana versus throw a chair while screaming. One structure handles everything. And this is the genius of it, because players in Enginotica don't build generic characters. They get weird fast. You might have one with seal bonuses and leap, confuse, drink poison, and punch ghosts. Another with wall climb, impersonating authority, decapitations, and farting in general directions. They're all valid in Enginotica. They're all mechanical. And they all plug into the same difficulty curve. No matter what your hero becomes, the world doesn't need to warp around them. It just runs the numbers, because the feasibility system isn't flavor, it's math. An algorithm that resolves clean. Combat leveling, game events, social encounters, all in one roll of the D19. Difficulty in Enginotica is measured in a single universal scale from -9, which is trivial, to +9, which is legendary. That means whether you're trying to punch a drunk in a tavern or convince a demon not to devour your soul, the resolution mechanics are the same. You still roll order, you still roll chaos, you still apply feasibility. And that simplicity, it's not a limitation, it's liberation. Because now the system isn't just consistent, it's flexible without breaking. You don't need custom rules for magic or melee or social scenes or stealth or supernatural horror. You just shift the feasibility. Want to jump from a burning bridge onto a flying wyvern? Cool. Let's say 7 difficulty. Want to read an ancient cursed scroll while wounded and under time pressure? All right, maybe +6. Want to disarm a paranoid noble without them seeing you? Could be a 4 or 5. Depends on the context. And the game handles it. Same mechanic, always. This is what we mean when we say Enginotica isn't rules light. It's rules like tight, like fine clockwork. It doesn't have fewer systems, it has one system, smart enough to cover everything. You can homebrew without breaking balance. You can roleplay wildly divergent characters without having to invent constant new mechanics. You can build seals like guide the dying or tame dragons or speak with forgotten gods, and the game doesn't blink because it's not built around pre-made options. It's built around auto-balancing response. That's the difference. In most RPGs, the system starts falling apart the moment you get creative. Once you step off the rails, the GM has to improvise pretty much every ruling. But in Enginotica, you can break the mold, and the game just flexes around you. Here's the truth. Freedom without structure isn't good design, it's drift, and most narrative-first systems drift constantly. They fudge, they fake it, or they offload it onto the GM's shoulders. That's not scalable. That's not clean. That's stress and resentment in a trench coat. But Enginotica's feasibility framework is scalable. It gives GMs a stable difficulty scale they can rely on in any context and in any world. Because it rules consistently across all metrics. And that means as long as the GM also rules consistently, the game will always feel fair and balanced. It gives players confidence that their weird, beautiful characters are fully supported. It gives the whole table a shared language for tension, risk, and resolution. Not vague indie vibes, not trust your GM improv, not another D20 treadmill wrapped in extra lore and a couple fancy adjectives. This is something else, a new engine built from zero. I get it. That sounds like everybody's marketing. You've heard it before. Every new system swears it's different and modular and innovative. But here's the truth. They won't say out loud. Most RPGs are mutations of the same mechanic ideas, like 3. Whether it's D20, D100, 2D6 dice pools, fate points, Powered by the Apocalypse, Call of Cthulhu, Rollmaster, they all bend under the exact same pressure. Player creativity on one side and math on the other. And when those collide, the system breaks. GMs fudge, rules stretch, homebrew patches the holes. CD19 doesn't bend because it wasn't built on those old bones. It's not a descendant. It's not a remix. It's not trying to streamline or patch legacy mechanics. It's new. A bespoke system designed to track tension, balance power, and scale cleanly no matter how strange your character becomes. You don't need special case rules. You don't need GM arbitration every time a player invents a wild solution. You roll, you measure, you resolve, and the game keeps moving. Every time, every roll. That's not a patch. It's not a promise. That's the difference between a system that tries to be modern and one that was forged for the world we're playing in now. And when the system supports who you really are, when it adapts without compromising, when it balances without limiting, you don't need a class, you don't need a tree, you don't need a table full of exceptions. You just need a reason to act. And the rest, let the system handle it. So here it is. The grind is dead. The XP bar is dead. The spreadsheet masquerading as a story is dead. You don't need to earn your character by checking someone else's boxes. You don't need to beg your GM for permission to grow. You don't need to justify your weird, specific, beautiful playstyle to a system that was built in 1974 to reward dungeon looters. That era is over. And if you're ready for the next one, the one where your story actually matters, the one where your stats reflect your soul, the one where your game grows with you, not against you, then come see what we've built. Enginotica isn't a fix. It's a total replacement. No XP, no classes, no rails, just you, the spiral, and the truth that what you do changes everything in the game. So if you've ever wanted a system that listens, if you've ever wanted mechanics that remember, if you've ever looked at your character's sheet and thought, but this isn't me, then stop trying to tweak a broken machine. Scrap it and build something better. Grab Enginotica on DriveThruRPG, join the Discord, become a patron if you want to play with me directly. But whatever you do, stop grinding. You don't need a system that defines you. You need one that reveals who you are. See you in the spiral, my friends.